Just sometimes when people just obviously didn't like you and then they found out you were famous and they suddenly like you.
When did you realize you had to take it easy or step down a bit?
Well, I mean, at different times, like even on my last tour, I had to like, oh, hello. When did I realize I had to step back? Yeah, it's just happened at different points in my life, like where, you know, after a tour and I've been exhausted and I'm like, okay, next time I'm going to do this differently or that. Yeah.
And is there someone who sometimes like says, Natasha, sit down and don't do anything for 3 weeks?
There is. I had a tour and this tour manager didn't let me have any fun because the tour was so, whoever booked the tour, it was so like a punishing schedule that he was like, you can't go out, you have to, and he really saved me from losing my voice, you know, and getting ill, like, cause he just, it was kind of not fun, it made me, it's very boring, but the gigs itself weren't boring.
How does that go now? Is it still like that? Is someone on your back all the time?
No, not so much. I guess I put it, I guess, you know, when you've been in the job this long, you kind of get a bit better at pacing yourself and your team starts to learn what you can, what your limits are.
I want to go back to 2001, when your brother Daniel had a #1 hit single in the UK. How did that, being his little sister, how did that make you feel?
It was amazing. You know, I've really always looked up to my brother and actually very, like, idolized him. You know, he's just always been the most talented person I ever knew. You know, it was incredible. And also, it's weird when you're a family of someone who gets famous because you kind of see everyone kind of falling in love with that person, and sometimes you see people who aren't very genuine, you know, you see people trying to use them and that kind of stuff. So it was definitely interesting, and I had like a, I guess I kind of knew what I was going into, you know, when it happened to me several years later.
Were there, around that time, were there people who were close to your family who started acting different because of what happened?
Yeah, there definitely were.
How did that manifest itself?
Just sometimes when people just obviously didn't like you and then they found out you were famous and they suddenly like you. And it actually happens, it happens to me sometimes anyway. You know, sometimes I'll like, I mean, I'm the kind of person that if I'm not like wearing my heels and I'm not got my makeup on, people just think there must be someone who looks like a friend of theirs. Like they don't always recognize me, and I like that. Like I like to kind of sneak in, and sometimes I'll purposely test people because you know who someone is by how they treat. Just if they think someone is just, you know, if they think someone's just ordinary, that they don't always treat them as well, then you kind of know they're not really a good person. So sometimes I'll make up fake jobs, you know, like I'll be in a party and I can tell that person's kind of just trying to find someone famous to talk to, and so I'll just, if they didn't recognize me, then I'll tell them, you know, if they're like an LA person, they're like, what do you do, you know, and I'll just make up that I'm, you know, I'm just married to a rich man or something.
A janitor.
Or a janitor or a tax collector or I don't know. Just trying to think of something that, you know, and you just see them go, oh, and look at someone else, and then they find out who you are and they come chasing and they like start, you know, trying to be buddy, and you kind of like, well, you weren't very nice to me when you didn't know who I was, so, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I remember that when I get famous.
Yes.
3 years after your brother, you got your first #1 single. Was it the same thing happening all over again, or how was that?
It was amazing. Nothing really could have prepared me for it. It was definitely my dream coming true and incredible. But I was very shy. I'm naturally quite shy, so I didn't know how to handle all the questions, you know. So I was quite. I feel like if I look back, I was quite. Well, I didn't really know how to answer all the questions back then.
Now you do.
Yeah, I would hide away in my house because I was afraid of the paparazzi. I was terrified.
How is that in the US? Is it much easier?
Yeah, I mean, you know, in LA, you know, I have a house in London, but I also live in LA. And in LA, there's so many stars there that, you know, there are paparazzi, but you kind of know where they are. So you can avoid them if you want. which I like. I think if you want to be in, if you've got something to talk about, you can be seen and heard. But if you don't, then it's not too hard.
If you want it, you can just
walk
into a trap.
If you want to, then just don't wear underpants. You know, just wear a mini skirt. Step out of the car. They're gonna stick a camera under your dress. That's not an accident.
If you need press, you can.
If you need it, if you need to show
that's
everything of yourself, then you can.